Hey guys, so if you've noticed, if you're wondering, I should say, about what's different, we're doing this from a different setting because my parents were watching a movie and I didn't want to bother them and tell them to, turn it down because it is deafening. I don't know why it's so loud. But anyways, so today we're continuing the old 62 and we're going to be talking about Liandly. Kind of the same. The same old stuff that we've been doing. She's another Superman-esque character. So, this is coming from writeups.org. It's not coming from dc.wikia.com. And the second, the latter is where I've been getting all my information up until this point. But she doesn't have a profile on the DC database. So this is what I have to deal with. And I'm pretty sure they got everything. I don't think they left anything out, because there's a lot here. Okay, so the first category is context. See, their categories for where they put certain things to say, it's all in different places. Powers and abilities are above history, so anyways, the first thing is context. It says, this character profile was from an arc about DC Comics characters who were echoes of the Supergirl. Whoa, I just got shot to a different page. I'm gonna hit the back button. Okay then. I'm not awake enough for this. So there's a bunch of characters that are echoes of Supergirl. The Supergirl concept. This specific Supergirl appeared in 1982 in the Mr. and Mrs. Superman story arc in the Superman family. I'm guessing the Superman family is an early 80s line of comics. So that was before Crisis on Infinite Earths, and she existed on Earth 2. Okay. Background is the next category. Other aliases, it's just Liandly. Liandly of Roles, or Linda Lee. Yeah, I think she may have inspired the Linda Lee Supergirl, because she went by Linda Lee when she was on Earth. But she's not Kryptonian. She's from the planet Roles. Marital status single. Known relatives. Gora Tyack is her father. Group affiliations none. Base of operations Roles, Metropolis of Earth 2. Roles and Metropolis. Height 4'2". Well, she was rather young. Blue eyes and blonde hair. Powers and abilities. Upon arriving on Earth, Liandly developed a variety of telepathic abilities. She also acquired strange powers that seemed to revolve around manipulating gravitational fields. That's interesting, because when I read her history, it was a long time ago. It didn't sound like her powers were very specified. Her powers, though, were sufficiently ill-defined as to make the ability to sense whether people, when people might be in danger, seem natural enough. Alright, so that was powers and abilities. And now, we're going to go on to history. It does seem like she was born with her powers, because when she was on Earth, she already knew how to fully use them, so there was no training session. Alright, history. When Liandly's scientist father was preparing to test a teleportation device, that's interesting, the young girl from Roles was too curious for her own good. Tinkering with the controls while her father was preoccupied, she fell into a portal which whisked her off to far away Earth. Okay. You know, it's hard to expect what you're about to read when you word it like that. There she encountered Superman, who was surprised she was at her who was as surprised as she was to her newfound powers. But she acted like she already knew how to use them. We'll see evidence of that. Until the location of Roles could be determined, Superman and his wife Lois invited the young alien girl to stay with them. At Lois's suggestion, they called Liandly Linda Lee, a natural Americanization of the alien name. Liandly's presence turned out to be to everybody's benefit. Colonel Future used a gravity weapon to drain Superman of his gravity-derived powers, then trapped the Man of Steel in heat-proof manacles, so he couldn't use his heat vision. That makes sense. So, this is like, I didn't realize how different Earth 2 Superman was. Like, before Crisis, how much they had changed him. He was also, like, aging, wasn't he? Whereas, in today's comics, it looks like he never ages. I'm sure they, like, followed up with more story arcs. That makes sense. Liandly, following Superman into battle on a hunch despite the danger, held the Man of Tomorrow's hand and seemingly restored his incredible strength by unknown means. See, she already knew how to do that. And it was cryptic to us. So, it's like she didn't need any kind of training. She already knew how to use her powers, whatever they are. We don't really know who they are. The powers and abilities thing said that her powers were made hard to understand on purpose. But after the battle, the energy which sent Liandly to Earth apparently wore off, presumably returning her safely to Rolez and her father. So that was her history. Then we've got a description, which basically tells what she looks like. And then we've got personality. I'll go ahead and read that one. Liandly is a fairly typical precious girl. Precocious young girl. See, it's hard to expect what you're about to read. You know, when you try to read fast, you don't really read. You just try to expect what you're about to read. And the way they're wording this, it makes it hard. She essentially alternates between believing that she's taking part of a grand adventure and being miserable at being away from home. Okay then. In any event, her powers are more a minor novelty than anything else, yet they didn't seem like they would be effective. Despite that oversimplification, however, there's obviously something heroic in the girl. Yeah, true. Thus, with unproven and unknown powers, she entered a dangerous combat zone on a hunch to help Superman. And then it has quotes, and it got quite a lot of them. DC Universe history. Didn't we just read that? Ah, interesting. DC Universe history. Sure. What's one more Supergirl between friends, really? Liandly's story would have occurred recently, shortly after the revelation that Sur-El was a fraud, but before the official Kara Zor-El Supergirl arrived on Earth. So, like, Liandly arrived after Sur-El and before Kara Zor-El. You guys can continue reading that section if you want to. I'm gonna link this, obviously, because it's not the DC database. So I feel like I need to link this. But yeah, this is a kind of a confusing one. But it is like a Supergirl duplicate. Or not duplicate. Like, creative-wise, the writers and the guys behind the comics, they made a duplicate character. But she's, like, in no way related. Not in a literal sense, anyways, to Supergirl. So, yeah, I don't know about this one. She definitely needs some, like someone should run over this with a fine-tooth comb and just really try to get this in depth, because I feel like I just made a squirrely mess of all this stuff. But I'm trying under a little bit of pressure to make this episode, so I think I did my best for the circumstances. But next video is going to be, I think it's going to be back to the DC database, so it might be easier. I'm still going to have to link that one because it's hard to find. So I'll see you tomorrow, hopefully, and peace.